Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. So glad you're here with us. It's Amy and Ken back for everything you want to know about the Silva Method. Although today we have an important topic for you. And the question is, maybe you're feeling it. How in the world do you and Amy, how do we stay relaxed, centered, balanced, at peace when it seems like the world is on fire? In some ways, literally. A lot of chaos. We don't need to belabor that. You know what I'm talking about. And I want you to know I see it, I feel it, I'm concerned too. And it's therefore life events happen. And some of them are within our control and some of them are not. But what's ultimately always in our control is how we respond, or whether we react or respond, how we internalize what's going on, the value we place on it, the way of looking. Again, I need to disclaimer here. I'm not minimizing what's going on and what you may be feeling. What I am saying, though, is you and I owe it to ourselves to take command of our lives and not get sucked into the drama as best we can, maintain. Because when we're more likely to be at our best. If we're angry, upset, vengeful, resentful, it's nearly impossible to be at your best. It's nearly impossible to access wisdom, intuition, higher thinking functions. And you and I know, we all know, we need a lot of wisdom. There's a lot of correction that's needed and reform in our personal lives, in our community, agreed? So Amy and I, in this episode, want to just run through some tips, things. Some of it may be common sense. So let it be a friendly reminder. And I remind you, just because it's common sense doesn't mean it's common practice. So sometimes it takes someone reminding us. So Amy, welcome back. Here we go again.
Yes, thank you so much. And I'm super excited to talk about this particular topic today because I feel very personally that the whole structure and coursework that you and I both teach, the Silva Method, this is what it is designed for to help us when there are those life events, when there are world events happening around us that we're concerned about, life events happening that we're concerned about, and we're not quite sure how we're going to navigate it. And it's these structured tools. I feel like no other modality offers the structure in this way, that it's so practical. It's so practical that it helps us to just have a tool in our toolbox to be able to first remember to use. Just like you said, it may be common sense, but it's not common practice. Sometimes we have all these tools, we know we have them, but we don't use them because in the moment it slips our mind. But the 4 days, the tools that you and I both guide really help in navigating our life. And we also have so many other tips that we're going to talk about today, whether you have gone through the Silva Method or whether you have not taken the Silva Method and do other things. Just some things to remind you of, a friendly reminder of things that you can have in your back pocket during times that you may need them the most.
I'm going to jump in. We teach this in the Silva because it's full of coping skills. And we do a lot of dynamic meditation and we play games with our intuition. However, something that has universal appeal, and I've heard so many countless thought leaders remind us, and it's really that important, it's essential, it's a game changer. So please write this down, or if you're not doing this already, you own your day by first owning the morning. The morning sets you up for the day. Some people call it priming yourself for the day. And that is, you can see behind me a chart. We call it the scale of brainwave evolution. It was developed by Mr. Jose Silva based on his initial research. However, because of the way our brain functions, when we go to sleep, we go through sleep and dream cycles. And when we wake up in the morning, the early morning hours, the last 90 minutes is mostly in a highly suggestible state where we learn incredibly fast, where there are no defenses, called alpha. That's why the easiest time you notice to remember a dream you've noticed is in the early morning hours. Now, why is that important? We know now from all the evidence and science that it takes about 30 minutes for the body and brain, so to speak, to completely wake up. And I'm not talking about people who are like that, but just in terms of changing. So it's really a golden 30 minutes. Some might say even a little bit longer. In that first minimum 30 minutes, possibly an hour, it's a golden time. So therefore, what I want you to start doing is then you can contact me. You'll notice immediate results. Instead of running to your phone as you open your eyes, some people sleep with their phone by their bedside. Big mistake. And then the first thing you do, wake up and what do you see mostly on the phone? Is doom scrolling, right? All the problems of what's wrong, people yelling and so on and so forth. And the way the algorithms are set up, it's entrancing to us. It's addictive. All the research. I'm not talking opinions. This is not a philosophy. This is not an opinion. This has been observed. The evidence is there. And very likely you know it. And if you don't, take it to the bank. So some people maybe don't run to the phone, but they run to the news. They turn on the news, have a cup of coffee. Caffeine in your system without any food in your system is not good for the biome, for the microbiome, and for your gut. That's a fact. Talk to a nutritionist about that. And then the news. So then here we are feeding ourselves because the news cycle, they say if it bleeds, it sells, or there's a term, I have a mental block to the term. And I'm not knocking the news. I want to be informed. We need to know what's going on. But the way the news media works is they're so biased. It's like we have regime media, and it depends on your point of view and what side you want to emphasize. And it's not always accurate. It's not always unbiased. And even if it were, we don't need to know everything that's going on all over the world while it's going on. And once the principle we teach in Silva, Amy was just reminding me before we started about you acknowledge the circumstances, acknowledge the challenge, own up to it, take responsibility. And then what can I do to change this? What can I do to protect myself? What can I do to take care of my family? What can I do to turn this around and not wallow in the problem? And what I'm saying is if you run to your phone or you run to the news first thing in the morning, those first 30 minutes minimum, you are starting your day with stress. And you are feeding that. And if you follow that one simple thing, and in the morning, what could you do instead? Read some poetry, talk to a good friend, meditate, take 15 minutes of a quiet, relaxing meditation, listen to some really quiet, easygoing music, read some wonderful quotes that you like, anything like that in the morning. That's how you start your day. And if you're doing a meditation, you prime by mentally rehearsing positive outcomes for the day. And you're starting that way. That is a key. And I would say, secondly, you're owning your morning, but then you got to own your evening. A lot of people saying, teaching that the research is there that an hour minimum to maybe 2 hours, no screens before bed. I know that's a tough one. And screens includes everything, including TV. But for sure, be selective in what you watch. Barbara and I, my wife, we like watching different shows, and I become very selective what we watch as we're getting closer to bedtime. Something lighter, something that's heartwarming, something that's a feel good, as opposed to some of the intense dramas that are there that we do, but just before bedtime. It'll help you sleep better. It'll help you to not flood your body with stress hormones, so on. So these are that's one biggie. How about Amy? You want to add some things for during the day?
At first, I want to add to what you just mentioned with setting up the day and then setting up your evening as well. I like to think of it as if you're going on a big trip in your car, what are you first going to do to ensure that your car will go? You're going to fill it with gas, and you're not going to fill it with gas that your car doesn't take, right? You're going to fill it with the gas that it's supposed to have to get there easily and healthily. And so if we're energy, we are consuming energy, we're giving off energy, we're managing our energy. And one of the things that sleep does for us is it rejuvenates us, right? It rejuvenates us. We get a whole new start to the day. We hopefully wake up rejuvenated, and that's the energy we have to get through the day. So if the very first thing that you're doing is looking at your phone and all the things you have to do, or emails or texts, or going to the news that is mostly not so great, right? Then that's the energy that we are then replacing, that we just woke up with. We've shifted our energy, and that's the energy we're going to use throughout all of our decision making throughout the day. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, when we're going to sleep at night, if like you mentioned, if we watched a TV show that was super negative or filled us with stress, that's the energy you're using to go to sleep at night and to repair your organs, your cells, to heal with. So thinking about it as, hey, we're waking up in the morning, we're going on a trip throughout the day, right? We are navigating this journey of life. And what is the energy we want to use in order to do that? And as we're
Yeah.
going throughout that journey of life, there are some things that we can do. We like to call them pattern interrupters, right? So when you are experiencing, maybe you're thinking about some things that you need to do, or thinking about situations or an event occurs, first and foremost, exactly what Ken mentioned, acknowledge it. Acknowledge that it is occurring. And I like to say, go ahead, throw the pity party, be in the moment, be in all of the emotions, and then say, all right, now I'm going to move forward. I'm going to take action to move away from it. And some of those actions, depending on what's going on, can be, they sound kind of simple, but they actually change your chemical makeup. I mentioned, I know not everybody has a pet. However, if you do have a pet, a cat or a dog, they actually help your body change physically and feel those love feelings, and they relax you. Or simply taking 3 deep breaths and possibly drinking some water. All of these scientifically help to help to inactivate rather the stress response, and to help flood your body with those endorphins that help you to relax. So those are just a few.
Yeah. And again, like we said, friendly reminders. However, the talk about pattern interrupters in the brain. The brain needs pauses. Our brain works much more effectively. We feel better because it's the little things that build up. So could you imagine a pressure cooker with that release valve? If you were to block the release valve, you better run because it's going to explode eventually. And that's what happens. It's not the big things, it's the little things that build up because we have a little bit of stress hormone released into the blood, into the body, and a little bit more. So, Amy, talking about the pattern interrupts is so essential. For example, going for a walk. There's nothing like a 20-minute walk. And if you can walk in nature, in the woods, or with trees all around you, or with minimum traffic, so you're not breathing in the fumes, etc., even better. As a native New Yorker, I was born and raised in Brooklyn, and we do have trees in Brooklyn. There's a joke from the movie way back. And for example, Manhattan, which is all man-made, huge city, metropolis there, but it's got an incredible park, Central Park. It's got Bryant Park. It's got a lot of little areas that nature's so important because we are, the universe is us, and it helps connect us. And that's the science piece. Another thing in the Amy mentioned about, I would say, social interaction with friends or reading a
Yes.
good book that moves you emotionally or that gets you thinking or inspires you, and being selective with who you spend your time with, because we become just like the people we spend most of the time with. So that just simply means manage your time. and spend as much time as you can with people who you know are with you in the good times and the bad times. You might be acting like a jerk and they still love you. They're still your friend. They've got your back. And not just when they're with you. Very important. And there's a whole bunch of studies based on brain scans showing about the importance of social interaction, intellectual stimulation, learning a language, learning a musical instrument, learning a new skill. Maybe you're playing around with that. One of the things, I'm self-taught in a lot of technology. It's really not my thing, but I realize it's keeping me fresh because whenever you're learning something new, in a sense, it's a pattern interrupter. The brain, it activates the brain in a healthy way. I'm not a brain scientist. I'm not going to pretend to be like so many people do, but I do know, look at the research. So those are things that come to my mind. I think every day I go for a walk for that reason. Every day I do in the morning when I wake up, I meditate, 30, 40 minutes of stretching and so on to keep my body flexible and loose and so on, because I prefer not to take drugs or meds. And that's one way to do that. I practice prevention. And I've sustained injuries and I have stuff going on in my body because of those injuries and having been a long distance runner. So these are things I do by choice because I want to have energy and feel good and be able to move and freely and easily and do our classes as we go. So I, I would also say you got to just make a choice to live with grace and ease, to live with feeling good and energy, or just the opposite.
And I think that choice is what makes us humans, right? The choice of our free will, right? The choice of allowing what's going on around us to take power over us and decide how we're going to act, how we're going to respond, the choices that we make, or us taking control of the wheel and saying, you know what? That's part of that acknowledgement. This really is not great. I really wish that I wasn't here right now or having this occur right now. However, I know it's going to pass. I've got some tools that I can use, and maybe I've got to just get through it in order to get to the other side, and it's going to be all right. And that is also when we have to really look at our internal resources. So, really look at those resources that we have when you have figured things out, where you have gotten through a really hard time. We were just discussing before we got on,
Hmm.
my daughter was going through, she was going to a school event. It was brand new and she had some hesitation and it was hard. We really talked about it for a really long time. And she experienced some anxiety. She is a Silva Method grad, but in this, we talked about all the tools she had. It was her choice to use them or not, but we talked about all of the tools she had. And then also, she really had an emotional response, a physical response, but it's something that she really wanted to do. And she knew she was going to have fun going there. And all of a sudden, the next day when it was time to go, I feel good. Everything's gone. I want to go. She made a choice in that moment, and I was ready for it. I was happy for her to say, no, it's not something I'm going to do. It's okay. I'm going to sit this one out. I was there for it. Or, hey, this is something I am going to do and I am going to go for it because it's something that I know I'm going to miss out on if I don't do it. And she chose that. And so that is that when we come right up to our fear response, I think it's called the terror barrier. And sometimes we go right up to it and we only are going to know if what we're made of and what we want to do and how we're going to get through it is if we decide to take those steps forward or shrinking back and saying, I don't know about that. So we get to choose. You get to choose. You get to choose how you experience your life. And hopefully, some of these tools that we've given, some of these suggestions can help navigate that a little bit easier to decide to really go for what you want. It's not easy. It is I definitely know that when we're faced with things we haven't done before, in this case, my daughter had never gone on this experience before, and she was scared because she didn't know. It's the unknown. We don't Our brains love to keep us safe, especially in the unknown. And so it will do everything possible to say, "Are you sure you want to go through with this? Because we don't know. We don't know about this." But she decided in that moment to do it. And so, in order to make those decisions, in order to make those difficult decisions, sometimes we have to know, to Ken's point, we've got to have people surrounding us that support us, that have our back. We've got to have some tools in our toolbox that we can practice and that we can use, which is what I mentioned at the very beginning. Everything that we do in our 4 days together is just tools, practical tools that we can use. Going out for a walk, having those pauses, being with people who bring us joy, doing things that bring us joy, because it's those moments and those moments that we have accomplished something, those successful moments that are also going to get us through those more difficult moments.
I'm smiling here. I'm so glad you brought up what you did. You must be psychic. Because as we were saying, it's not always, it's simple, and it really is this simple, but it's not always easy, and it's not a quick fix. Again, we're not looking to minimize this. I would also add in, make a gratitude list every day. Just think of one thing. Or when was the last time you said to your partner what you love about them? Make a list. Or what you love about your life. Or it could be here at this time of the year now, we're having some very warm weather. It's not usually this warm, and the sun's out. We've just had a week of just clouds and rain and stuff. It doesn't have to be big drama, anything like that. It helps us to maintain a state of grace and calm. What you're really doing is managing your energy for that. And the other thing I would add in here too is that part of managing our energy is being careful about self-care is important, and nurturing ourselves. And some people experience too much, what they call it, overcare, and care too deeply and internalize it. So here's a little pattern interrupter. If you're a nurse, if you're a coach or a mom or a dad, and you tend to get sucked in, be compassionate, listen, be helpful, and remember, this is not my burden to carry. Every human being has their own life challenges. It's very easy for me to say that, and I'm a good example of that, but it works for that, because part of maintaining a balance is recognizing this is not my burden to carry. And if you care that deeply, then the question is, what can I do, if anything, to help? What can I do, if anything, to prevent it, to minimize the damage? It takes those kinds of questions. So all these things we mentioned are really just tools, if you will, simple tools to keep the body balanced. And Amy, I'm going to respect your privacy, didn't do justice to the story about her daughter who took Silva with me, by the way, not too long ago, is that our emotions run our physiology. And when somebody is in a state of anxiety, a deep state of worry, it'll affect your physiology and how you feel, whether you have a temperature, whether you have hives, whether you have a stomach ache, it affects everything. And yet we can go in and interrupt that pattern and say, I'm done. This is something I really want to do. And you're really that powerful. Our mind influences our body. And that's been an old story that science is catching up with more and more with that. So guys, I hope these small, simple things help. Just remember, you're far more than you realize. And Amy, we should introduce ourselves in this particular one. Amy, want to introduce yourself?
Yes, so I'm Amy Schneider. I am the Silva Method instructor here for Atlanta, Georgia, Western North Carolina. I give classes in Asheville, North Carolina. And I was introduced to the Silva Method at 9 years old, and now 41 years later, I have been practitioner of the techniques for 41 years and an instructor for now 6. Actually, we are Ken, I actually think it was this week, 6 years ago, where I
Yeah.
traveled to Connecticut for instructor training just as the world was shutting down during COVID. And I've never looked back, and it's been super wonderful, and I'm so grateful that I have found my purpose,
And
and I have
Amy
you to
got,
thank for that.
and what you're not telling them, Amy, is that she does the work. She has reviewed with me and other people, I don't know how many times, so many. Not because she's slow, but because she is in the game and knows there's always something to learn. It's something I've always admired about you, because there is always something to learn, isn't there? Something more. My name is Ken. You pronounce my name Coscia, like the Knish, as if there were a K there. And I started when I was 19. I was flunking out of Boston University in engineering. I took Silva. I became the youngest instructor on the planet at the ripe age of 19 and a half. And I graduated cum laude, studying less, using the three fingers technique and the study technique that Mr. Silva for accelerated learning. I used to suffer from headaches, chronic use of Anacin, no more, case closed with respect to that. And now I get to travel the world as Silva's lead guy and training director. So if you're still here watching us, thank you. Share the good word. If you know anybody who could benefit from this, it'd be great. Help us get the word out to people. And we look forward to sharing some more with you.
Thank you.